What if God's future for your life is not only bigger than you imagine, but closer than you imagine? Now, I think we should particularly pray for Ruth and this sermon, because encouraging Craig for bigger ideas and bigger visions is fraught. But as you will hear, it's God works through many, many people. But what if God's future for your life is bigger and closer than you imagine? And then when we consider Advent, what if it's not so much about preparing for Christmas, but preparing for our hearts to see Jesus again? The bigger vision of Advent isn't a plan for the future. It is the person of Jesus Christ who is near us. Advent is a simple invitation. Lift your eyes to Jesus. Awaken your heart to Jesus. Jesus is nearer than you think. And so I want us to listen to this vision from Isaiah. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills. All nations will stream to it. Many peoples will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths." They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. That vision is not the world as it is, but it is a promise of God of what it will be. A healed future and a bigger vision than what we can imagine. The psalm which we didn't hear today, Psalm 122, the first verse. "I was glad when they said to me, 'Let us go to the house of God.'" There's joy in the house of God. There's joy in gathering in the house of God. There is joy in turning our faces to God. And this is where Advent begins. Lifting our eyes from the narrowness of our worries into the grandness of God's vision. Lifting our eyes above the smallness of our world and into the greatness of his vision. Has God been doing this lifting of our eyes in this community and with us personally? I don't want to just tell you whether or not that is happening. I want you to know from your experience, is Christ moving through us, lifting our eyes to him. And so I just want to share various encounters of how our eyes are lifted. And, Craig, do I have permission to use you as... It's polite, it's fine. He gets the mic after me, so I need to be careful anyway. But here's some encounters that have been happening that are pointing us to Jesus. And of course it begins at parish council. So if you are a God vision caster, consider parish council. Our SGM is after the service. Here ends the intermission. Here's these series of encounters that have helped focus my mind that God has a bigger vision And the thing is, the vision isn't over there. It's growing and woven into every encounter we have. And it started at Parish Council. We were happily celebrating God's provision. We were excited at how well God has provided. Enter Craig. Of course, God provides when our vision is small, essentially. It was a thankful thing. Yes, of course God will provide, particularly if our vision is small. We discuss this in the realm of prayer quite often. If our prayer life is very answerable from our own actions, we need a much, much bigger prayer life. When you need God to intercede and act so that prayer may come to fruition, that's praying. Is that the type of vision we take into our entire life with Christ? Now, Craig didn't leave it there. It was an encouragement asking, is our vision rising to the size and scale of God's vision, or is it remaining just ours? Are we seeing our mission as God sees it, or as we see it? Are we believing as widely as God invites us to believe? Does our mustard seed of faith stand a test of God's faith that we can be his people? Now here's where we have to, we hold that one kind of there. But that same type of calling and vision to a bigger idea of God and stepping into God's vision, I'm sorry, Ruth, was confirmed at the Ablaze conference that we were at a week or so later. It did so in prayer and in worship and in very simple moments. But the question kept coming up: does our vision match God's larger vision? Even when we went to lunch, there were these cards on everyone's table, random little quotes. And what did yours say, Craig, may I ask again? Hang on, Ruth has the photo evidence. This wasn't planned, he did just sit down. I shouldn't have left him alone.
Dream without limits, shoot for the moon.
Dream without limits, shoot for the moon. As members of this church, would we ever put that nearest seat that Craig was going to sit at? No. But this stuff kept happening and happening and happening. So get ready to join a ride, St. Mary's. But then also, when we're at this conference, other moments were shared. Mark MacDonald, he shared a wonderful reflection at the Blaze when we had it in Barden last year. And interestingly enough, that talk was taken to Kawana. And when they showed that talk, Pastor Steve there just said, that church has now changed. It clicked. Something has clicked. But Mark shared that he's gone to London twice to the Alpha Leadership Conference. He says the first trip he came back full of ideas of structure, of strategies, of systems. Not much changed. The second time he went, he said it was entirely different. I met Jesus again. So very simply, he came back and said it's not about programs, it's not about systems, it is about Jesus. His eyes returned to Jesus. So that's a conversation in Melbourne. So we began at Parish Council, we've gone to Melbourne, Craig's been affirmed. Mark has shared this wonderful story. 4 days later, after this conference, I met with some clergy down at Rabina. I met with the assistant priest there, Nate, and Nate is from the UK. And the reason I met with these guys is they've started talking about quiet revival after their own experience in England. But I was speaking with Nate, just quietly with him, and he said the reason and how I got interested in renewal and revival was, if anyone remembers the Asbury outpouring, or however we just, a college campus out of a move of the Spirit was full every night for months, 24/7, just prayer. And Nate said to his wife with a newborn baby, we need to go to this. So that's God courage right there. And they went. His priest went with him as well. And he said to me, the thing was, Pete, when we left, we thought we were doing everything right. We were doing everything that church growth says you should do, which essentially was trying to implant a Hillsong model into the Anglican church. But his priest came back, pastor, whatever we want to call them. And he said the brilliant thing was, he stood in front of his church and he repented. He said, I am sorry. We have been doing this wrong. We need our eyes on Jesus and not the systems we're doing here. I have not spoken to him about the conference I was at. He is just sharing the exact same experience. When we have an encounter with Christ, things are simplified, but they are so much deeper. So they're not remarkable by themselves. They're just a reminder, a precursor to renewal, personal and corporate, is eyes on Jesus. At that same meeting, I was speaking with his priest, and I prayed with Stuart after I met with a few different people. Now, Robina, quite a big ministry, an creative and inventing ministry, basically wise with assets, selling assets to be able to fund other mission and ministry, bringing out wonderful resources from other countries and really spreading out. And so he was sharing his own experience of that same Alpha conference that Mark had been to. And it wasn't so much about his experience right there. But after all our talk of their ministry, their mission, his big ideas, as I was sitting praying with him, he said, you know what, Pete, I was reminded that my vision needs to be bigger. I'm like, yours? He said, it needs to be bigger than my own. So unfortunately, that's a tick to Craig. But how great that through different voices, through different places, through very different moments, different continents, different states, all point in that one direction, eyes on Jesus. Wake up and lift your eyes to Jesus. Pick up your vision, throw it in the bin, and look for God's vision for your life, and really seek to know the gift giver. Some of us hear when God speaks once, that's not me. But when he says it over and over and over, we need to pay attention. When God repeats something, particularly through different people, different channels, he is lifting our eyes to what he is doing and not what we think should go on. And that's the heartbeat of Advent. We heard in our Romans reading, the hour has already come. Things are already moving and working in God's vision. Yours might be stagnant. God's is moving. Do you want to be part of it? The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. I thought I need to study that sentence, but I just love that sentence by itself. Our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. That should be exciting. That should be something we want to get into. The night is nearly over. The day is almost here. So what Paul here is saying in Romans is kind of what Craig sensed. It's what Mark rediscovered. It's what Nate witnessed. It's what Stuart affirmed, that Jesus is nearer than we think. So to continue with Paul, well then let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on that light of Christ, the armor of light. It's here to put on with us. He is here to walk beside us and clothe us. And as we've heard so many things in these last few weeks, we need the spiritual armor of Christ, because there is such demonic things happening in this city. I shared a few weeks ago that we're at prayer with 96.5, and so almost everyone in that room is pretty much dressed lower than me. More expensive than me, but lower than me. So you know how to look really casual is really expensive in the Pentecostal church. Love them, but there's a certain style. And then there's this one man in the corner, looks like Johnny Cash, all black, dog collar on, has prayer beads which look like he's got brass knuckles on, ready to go. And when he prayed, I could see why he held them like that. There weren't these justs and ums and tentative prayers. It was, there is demonic things happening in this city. Let's name them, let's put Christ in charge of them, and let's defeat it. And everyone, like the air in that room was something else when that man prayed. And we are seeing it, unfortunately, through many of the testimony we've heard in this church in the last few weeks. The spiritual battle is real, but Jesus is so close and intimate with us. Clothe yourself so that you are ready for that. And Christ will defeat it, not of your own accord. We're called to keep watch. We need to read the room and the situation in which we are in. We don't know the day of the Lord when the day of the Lord will come, but we must be ready. It's not a call of fear, it's a call of attentiveness, spiritual wakefulness, eyes up and noticing that Jesus is already with us, in us, beside us. What each of these stories that I've shared have showed is a people paying attention, a people being awake, and a people noticing Jesus' presence with us. Advent teaches us an intentional period of paying attention that Jesus is already near. How do we do this? How do we lift our eyes to Christ? How do we awaken our hearts? It's not complicated. We love to complicate it, because if we complicate it, we can then offer the program that uncomplicates it. Well, that was really wise, I thought. If you simply read these readings this week, Isaiah 2, 1-5, Romans 13, 11-14, or whatever you are reading in your scriptures every day, ask Jesus, where are you near and ready for me today? Asking is always the easy part. But in that question, there's no striving, there's no pressure, but there is an intentional intentiveness to seek his presence. And that's how renewal begins in us. Being intentional in seeking where Christ is in our life now, and realizing there's so much more to that into the future. As Advent begins, lift your eyes, awaken hearts, and see Jesus again. Make that your prayer. Lord, awaken my heart. May I see you face to face. Jesus is nearer than you think. His vision is already on the move. Do you want to take up your cross and join it? Amen.